What's going on, buddy?
Is it that time again?
Well, I wasn't sure because I did my usual thing where a few hours earlier I messaged you with like a either 5 or 6 or 6 with a
I didn't
question mark.
respond.
You didn't respond, buddy.
Oh shit!
You left me hanging. I took a shot at 6 o'clock because you didn't say no. So
I honestly, I think I started to type and never hit send.
I feel so unimportant now. Oh.
I got sidetracked. I got a call. I don't know.
So, yeah. So, what you got for me today, pal?
But you know what's funny? I want to start off by saying the amount of messages that I've gotten in the last week that are like, "Hey, your podcast. Hey, this, that, the other," from people who I never thought listened to it.
Yeah.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
The ironic thing is that while we've been tracking more and more listeners every week, the last 2 days have been really down. And
Right.
I kind of figured out what it was. I put a less than interesting title for the last one. So, you know.
Think?
Huh? Yeah, I think that.
You think that's what it is?
I'm pretty sure. Because it would. Look, Marco and I get on these weird tangents. All of a sudden, we're telling stories about when was the last time we threw up from drinking. And so, smart me wanted to incorporate that in the title. And so, I guess some people didn't want to hear about us throwing up.
Probably not, yeah. Well,
but
it's funny because I was at work today,
yeah,
and it's a store that's I'm kind of watching. It's not really my store, and I haven't been there in a minute. And I walked in, and the guy says to me, one of the managers there, he says, "What's up, Slambino?" And I'm like, "The hell would he call me that for?" Like, there's never been any talk where I would be called Slambino at work, like from this guy.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was out of context, and I blew it off. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" But when I was leaving, he saw Breakfast Club stickers in my bag,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Hey, what's that? Is that one of your Breakfast Club stickers?" And I said, "Yeah, you want one?" He said, "Yeah." And this motherfucker, and I know he's gonna hear this, so he says, "I downloaded the podcast, but then he unsubscribed and like undownloaded it." And I was like, "Why would you do that?" And he's like, "Well, I go on these tangents where I like listen to podcasts. Like I'll listen to a whole bunch in a row, and then I'll like cut it off and listen to another different one." Or, like I guess he goes from because he doesn't like stay loyal to it. And I was like, I think I guilted him into it because I don't know. 30 minutes later, I get a text message, and it's that podcast, the Throwing Up one. He goes, "You're not even in this one." Right.
Well, you're in 2 out of 3 every week. I mean, you
That's
know.
why I told him that. I wrote back and said, "Wednesdays and Fridays, pal."
Yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You just gotta,
Right.
no one's.
Right. Listen, if you want me 3 days a week, it's going to cost you.
Listen, we
I'm on Chadwick time at that point.
we listen. Sometimes, and honestly, sometimes we sneak you in. I mean, sometimes we.
In the other right.
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's that. I mean, it is what it is. I know we realize that you're the big name in the TikTok game out of the 3 of us. But ironically, our podcast without you does pretty well. So I don't know what to tell you.
Right. I don't know. And then that's not the only thing that happened. At the same store today, someone else, he's like a district, he does like some marketing stuff, randomly was like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh, hey." And I haven't seen him in months. And he says, I used to watch your videos. I haven't watched them much anymore. And I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I didn't know what he was talking about. And then I think, did he like stumble upon my TikTok or something? Or like there was no context to what videos he watched. And I was like so caught off guard. I was like, "Oh," and then like we both separated. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? So I don't know. Maybe he watches my videos. I have no idea.
Or maybe it was the one from 4 years ago that we used to put up once a week.
Yeah, I don't know what he was talking about, but I mean, I'm kind of a big deal at work.
I guess you are. Now, when you were talking about someone calling you Slambino, I mean, in a different day, people ribbed you about wrestling, and
Right.
So I mean, it wouldn't be too out of place to just go, "Hey, Slambino," now.
No, but with this guy, it was.
Okay.
I felt like it was, but now I know because they listen to the podcast. They watch what? Maybe they found me on the TikTok. I don't know.
he's a Slambino Mark.
Right. I hope he's listening, you Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, but what else you got?
I mean,
As usual, I come in unprepared.
oh Jesus Christ, you're the worst. Like you just don't respect these people at all.
Don't say that because
That's
now I'm gonna get Paula's gonna text me in the morning and be like, you know what, Ben's right because me and her. I told her I don't write anything down, and she's like, oh, you're so unprepared, and like she takes your side. Now you're giving her more ammo.
yeah. Well, I mean, she's not wrong to take my
You're
side.
both wrong.
I
You're
mean,
both wrong.
I'm on the side of truth, liberty, and justice over here, and you're on the side of God knows what.
Well, I mean, I could tell more stories. They seem to be a hit.
Yeah. Well, we had some technical difficulties last week, and I had to cut out the part where you said that we were going to start telling some of your dating mishaps. So you weren't obligated to do it this week, but now that I brought it up, maybe you are. I can run down a list of what I know, but you may not want
What
to
do you
talk
know?
about any of those. Well, look.
Oh, yeah, wait, hold on. Let me rephrase that. No, don't say anything because I don't even know what you're gonna say. Now, you just saying what you just said makes me nervous.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ones that are a little touchy, but we brought up maybe telling the one about your squatter.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to tell that.
I mean, we teased it. I don't know how we can't. I mean, you want to go into the Mr. Perfect story? That's fine too.
I don't know. Here's my thing: is the Mr. Perfect story interesting to anyone but a wrestling fan?
Well, I mean, maybe. It depends how you tell it.
I don't know. I will tell you. I thought of a Billy Five story.
Are we going to be able to get through it without laughing our heads off?
I'm on the same road that I was on last time, where I drove in and out of the lanes because I couldn't see. I was crying so hard. So let's tread that line very, very close. Because if we start talking about Billy,
You already got us giggly. I don't know what we're going to do.
if we start talking about Billy shitting himself, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
But what I remember, I just think it's a good Billy story.
Yeah.
And since Billy, everybody knows Billy now. And apparently he's only listened to one podcast, according to him, and it was that one.
Well, that's
him.
that's the theory that just popped in my head is that he mentioned that he'd only listened to the one, and it was about him. So I think you're just trying to get him to listen to a second one because I'll put his name in the title now.
Well, if that's the case, I got a lot of Billy stories. But there's one Billy story that I was not there for, but Eric was. And if he ever is with me when we do one of these, he could tell that story because it involves them in a car and killing a bird and Billy's little kids, and it's absolutely a crazy story. But it's Billy, so
Yeah.
But when we started talking about Mr. Perfect was a wrestler. He was, for those who don't know, I mean, he was to me, like growing up, I mean, he was the man. Like he was one of the top guys. Like he was really good. He never won He won the Intercontinental Championship. Never won like the heavyweight title, but he was really good. But when you started talking about that, I started thinking about those times. Like, me and Eric were wrestling in Tampa with Billy a lot, and Billy was like our father, and he would drive us to Tampa. We would ride with him, and it was after the shows we would have after parties. This is where the story's good. So I started thinking about Mr. Perfect that happened in Tampa, all the after parties, and there's one night I will never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the Mr. Perfect story. So it was me, Billy, Eric, and our little brother. He wasn't, I just did air quotes like you can see me. Our little brother, Johnny Vandal, who at the time was, he was like 17 years old or 16 years old. So he was hanging with us on the shows, we would take them with us. So we do this show, and the after party was always at a strip club, Diamond Dolls, and the hotel was literally in the parking lot of the strip club in Tampa. So it was easy, you walk right over. So we're all getting ready to go to this after party at the strip club, and we're heading out the door, and we get to the door.
Let
And
me just. How many of those girls live at the hotel?
uh, none that I know of, but I do I do have another story about a wild incident there. Anyway, we'll get to that after.
Because I know you're not. I know that wasn't a
girls
5-star hotel, obviously. If it shares a,
It was honestly, it was like a Red Roof Inn or something,
right?
like
Because
crappy, right?
Because if it shares a parking lot with a titty club, you're probably
Right.
not, yeah.
Right. So we go to we're going to head out the door, and we get to the door, and it's me, Eric, Billy, and Johnny. And Johnny gets to the door, and he's underage, and Billy just puts his hand out, and he like hits Johnny's chest, and Johnny's like, "What?" And Billy's like, "Where the fuck do you think you're going?" He's like, "With you guys to the club," and he's like, "You're not going to the club with us. You're underage." And like Billy was like our dad, and he's like, "Your mom would never be okay with that. You're not going." And Johnny's like, "What am I supposed to do?" He's like, "You're gonna stay the fuck here." So Johnny's like, on the verge of tears because he's young and he just wanted to come hang out and party, whatever. So we go to the club, and we get back, and we get back to the hotel, and we're walking back, and we hear, we're hammered, and just to kind of context of those parties, we didn't pay for anything. So we would go to this titty club called Diamond Dolls. Everything would be free. I just remember them coming out with trays of Jello shots. I'm talking 50 to 100 Jello shots on a tray, and it was tray after tray after tray. It's like booby Jello shot, booby in your face Jello shot. It was.
How'd you get that hookup?
Bobby Rogers.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
For those who don't know, Bobby Rogers was a promoter who did some, he was doing shady stuff we didn't know at the time.
But someone was paying for it. It wasn't that they were comped or anything like that.
Right.
Okay.
And they may have been because they were a sponsor, but I don't know that much.
Right.
The amount of alcohol that was free and the boobies that were free it was ridiculous. So we're walking back to the hotel, and we hear something, like someone's like calling it like one of our names, and we're like, "What the fuck is that?" And you had to walk through like bushes to get to the hotel, and it's like a whisper, and we're like, "What the fuck?" And we look over, and in the bushes is Johnny crouched down like inside the bush, and we're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I was trying to sneak over to get into the thing." I was like, "Oh my God, if Billy finds you, you're dead. You're going to die. Like, he's going to kill you. Like, there's no way you're going to survive this. He told you to stay in the room." And Johnny when I tell you he was in the bush, he was literally crouched down as if he like MacGyver snuck over from the hotel to the bush. But when he got to the bush, we came outside, so he had to stay in the bush like he was trying to make a move. But I don't know what his end game was. Anyway, we get Johnny out of the bush. And obviously, we can't tell Billy because Billy would have killed him. So we get him out of the bush. We go back inside. Well, that was the first time. The second time we go, Billy says, "You're not going." And Johnny's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not coming with us. You're underage." Well, at the time, Bobby Rogers had a girlfriend named Jody. And Jody's like, "Well, I'm not going to go either, so I'll just stay here with Johnny." So Johnny's like, "I'm hungry. Like, I want to eat dinner or whatever." And I don't, he didn't have a car or anything. And Billy's like, "Okay, too bad. Figure it out." And this poor kid's starving. And we're going to, we went there and ate, we drank, whatever. So now the kid's hungry. So we go to the strip club. We come back, and Johnny's not there, and Jody's not there. Like, they're not there. And I look at my phone, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Johnny called like 30 times." Like, I don't know. I'm in the club. I don't know what's going on.
No reception or not,
Right.
Yeah. Or just not looking, right?
Now,
Because this is like you didn't get the internet on the phones back then. It's not like you were looking at them all the time.
No, I didn't. It wasn't on my phone at all. Right.
Right.
And here's the best part. It was raining that night. Like it was pouring. So all of a sudden, Johnny and Jody, we go to the other room, and they're in the room, soaking wet. Like I'm talking, Johnny's like, he's just looks like a wet dog. He's drenched with a Subway sandwich in his hands in the bag. But the bag, it rained so hard it went like through the bag, like in the bag. The sandwich is wet, and we open the door, and he's taking his shirt off, but Jody's in there too. And now Bobby's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like he looked like they were fucking.
Right.
And yeah, he was like, no, we were walking. I tried calling you guys. They walked to Subway. Subway was like 5 miles.
Oh my
and
God.
the two idiots walked and it's Johnny said they got halfway and it started pouring, but then they had to get back, so they had to walk back in the rain, and they walked back whatever. But I will never forget. Like Billy was always so kind to us, but he also always wanted to teach us a lesson, and I gotta say, Johnny was treated probably the poorest out of all of us. Like, I will never forget those two stories, because Billy both times was like, "You're not going anywhere, pal." And like, Johnny would like look at me and Eric like, "Are you guys gonna defend me?" I was like, "No, not today, bro. You're on your own." Not today. But I always remember those two stories. And Billy was like a dad to us. But he, man, there's so many stories I can tell. Some I can't tell. But there's so many I can tell just by being with Billy on the road, like stories like that, the strip club, or like the time we went to the strip club and it was someone else's birthday, and Billy got the girls to strap this guy to a chair on stage at the strip club. He's tied to the chair and he took an ass beating. He got a lap dance and then like chops beating from everyone. Just the shit that Billy did then. And it's funny because Billy would never, like, he would always come out like he was the innocent one out of all this. And they're like, "No, Billy was the instigator." And they're like, "No, Billy's a great guy." Because nobody wanted to fuck with him. But I don't know where I'm going with these two Billy stories, but they were absolutely fantastic.
I don't know. It's weird because, well, one, you're telling these stories like Billy died or something. The way you're telling them.
Oh, don't say that. He's going to hear that now.
And the way you're delivering them, it's like Billy's passed, and we're remembering the good times with Billy.
Oh, God, dude, come on.
And two, those were more Johnny Vandal stories than Billy's stories, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with those stories. I don't know.
Oh, that's terrible. So
he's going to think I think he died. I mean, what are you trying to say?
It's just the way you told them. Like, the whole time, I'm like, I was going to interrupt you, and I said, no, let's let him just fully commit to this.
You let me bury myself is what you did, you fucking asshole.
Oh,
the minute you put this up and he listens to it tomorrow, the comment is gonna be on the Facebook page. It's gonna be like, "I didn't die, fucker," or something like that.
I'm still here. Still here, breathing and ready to kick your ass. Basically, will be what it says.
Oh, God.
Yeah. When you were telling those, and here's the other disappointing thing about that story is, like, you told two stories that involved, like, Titty Club, but not about anything that happened in the Titty Club.
Okay, I honestly remember drinking so much that, like, I don't remember if that's that's anything. I mean, when I tell you that the shots would flow, like, I remember like the waitress would bring out a tray of Jello shots, and it'd be tray after tray after tray, and I was young, I don't know, I'm like, where the fuck is all this coming from? Like, I never put anything together like we had to pay, because I was poor and broke, and I never paid for a fucking thing.
Right.
So I never put two and two together. I just was like, whatever. It's free shit. And boobs. I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the most important part of it, I think.
The reason I told those two stories, there was a third story to go with that somewhere. I don't fucking remember.
You're the worst. You are like the absolute worst.
It was something to do with boobies and, I don't know, strippers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. We used to go to the Cheetah in Pompano, like literally 3 or 4 times a week. But this was probably before even your stories. And this is where one of my roommates ended up marrying one of the strippers from there. I told.
No.
Did I? I didn't tell you that story.
No.
Okay, so we had. I worked with my friend John, who owned the comic book store, and I worked at the comic book store. And for some reason, we also rented a house together. Me, him. There was somebody else that moved out, and then someone else moved in, and I don't remember either of those people. But also this guy named Billy Shrump, and Billy was used to be a drummer, like a punk band, and he was a cool dude, but he was like a little unhinged.
You've talked about him before.
Yeah, and he lived. We had like a house, like a 3-bedroom house, and then there was like the garage, like a separate garage that was converted into another, living area, and that was his place. Because it had its own entrance, and it was kind of separated from us, but he was still our roommate. So his coming and goings weren't as well known as ours to each other.
Right.
But we used to go to to cheat all the time. It was the place. I don't know why. I mean, I almost dated a girl from there, but she that's another story for another day. But he started seeing this like little blonde European girl, one of those like Eastern European girls with like sound like maybe a Soviet accent or something like that. And like we just sort of started to notice that she was like staying over there, and we're like, that's cool. He got one of these strippers to like start seeing them on a regular basis. And I'll segue before we get into that. Billy's the kind of guy. He's hilarious, but he's really like obnoxious. And I remember one time in that strip club, he said something to one of the girls that pissed her off so much that the wooden box that they used to dance on, it was like a little crate, and they would bring it with them, and when they would do a table dance, they would stand on it, so they were a little elevated when you're sitting there watching them.
Was he a midget strip club?
No, but it was like this is before lap dances and all that. So it was they were called table dances, and they danced at the table in front of you and whatever. So it was just part of the deal. And so he turned his back on her after he said whatever he said to her, and he's like turns to talk to me laughing. And I'm watching as she bends down and picks up the wooden box and starts to like run towards him to bash it over his head.
Oh my God!
And and one of the bouncers just came out of nowhere and made the save, and like that was it. Then Billy turned around, realized what was going on, and it was like 2 more minutes of heckling her while she's like screaming and yelling, trying to murder him, while this big bouncer's like holding her back and having a hard time doing it because she's just like so enraged and just amped up on adrenaline and whatever else, wanting
and probably cocaine and
whatever. Yeah. There's probably a lot in her.
Right.
But these are the fun times I used to have with Billy out when we would go to the strip clubs. But so one day he just comes to visit us at the comic book shop, and he's got I just for whatever reason I look at his hand. And he's got this like kind of like skull ring, but it's on his ring finger. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, what? I go, no, what is that? Yeah, he's trying to play dumb for a second.
Right.
He's like, this is my skull ring. I go, no. That's I'm like, no, that's on your ring finger, motherfucker. He's like, oh, that's right. I married what's-her-fuck, whatever her name is.
Like, you don't just slide that in as if it didn't happen.
Right. I'm like, how long ago? He's like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Oh, my God. And then, there was a time where I was, pulling up in my car to the driveway, and I was watching him pull his bed. He was dragging his bed frame out to the street for the garbage man to pick up. Like, what the fuck? He's like, oh, we broke the bed. I'm like, well, at least you're still getting along. But he he divorced her like 4 months later or whatever it was.
Oh my God, 4 months.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's long.
it was Billy. That was speaking of Billy's. This Billy, my Billy, Billy Trump. That was a good marriage for him. Was 4 months. I wish he was still alive because I would. That's a guy I would definitely have on the podcast to tell stories.
Yeah, he probably had some good stories.
That man lived a life. I mean, he was like a good drummer. Like other punk bands. Like if you would drop his name today, they'd know who he was. So
how did this whole episode become about strippers?
Well, I mean, you brought it up. I'm just saying.
Is this my fault?
I mean, yeah, basically, it's basically your fault. So
we just had a whole episode of strippers.
I know. Well, I mean, I got strip club stories for days. Most of them I can't tell you.
Well, I used to go. I mean, I don't. I'll say this, and hopefully Eric's wife doesn't listen. We used to. Eric used to work at Diamond Dolls in Pompano Beach, and we used to. I mean, Eric would work, and I would go. And this is so ridiculous. I can't even believe I'm saying this on air in front of people, but I didn't go for the boobs. I went for the food because they had a world-class chef who worked there. Like this guy was like they had hired him because they wanted a better like menu. This guy came in and was making. I mean, I would go on Tuesdays for prime rib. This is before I had kids. I would go. Tuesdays would be prime rib night. I'd go Thursday. They'd have like jambalaya. The pasta was out of this fucking world. The cheeseburgers. It got to the point where I started, like, I would tell people, "You want to go to Diamond Dolls?" And they'd be like, "Oh, you want to go to Titty Club?" I go, "Oh, no, I don't go for the titties. I go for the food." And they'd be like, "The fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, "You don't understand. They got a world-class chef there." Right. And then I would bring people, and they would be like, "You're fucking nuts." And we would go, we would eat, and they would go, "Holy shit, this is some of the best food I've ever had."
Yeah.
Because the food was outrageous. You remember Lenny, right?
Who?
Lenny, Chris, the kid from wrestling.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I took him there one night, and he told me, "No way." I said, "The fettuccine, the fucking fettuccine, my friend." Do you know that was probably 17 years ago, and the last time I saw him, he said, "I'll never forget that fettuccine." Like, it was that fucking good.
Can you? But, I have a working theory on strip club food. And it's kind of like, and not every strip club obviously is tied to organized crime.
Right.
But even if the owner isn't like, connected, guy, they've got money and they're working out of there. And it's like, they're going to have good food there because they're there all the time. And if they're gonna
eat good,
and if they're gonna be serving food anyways, might as well have it be really good food. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure that the menu is enough of a draw to validate itself. Although it had you coming all the time, and you were bringing people to experience it.
I was going 3-4 days a week.
So
not to see Eric or boobies. I was going for the food.
Right. But I look at like you can almost like visualize The Sopranos, where they're working out of the bada bing all the time. Of course, they're gonna have like 5-star fucking meals in there.
Yeah. And the best part was the bouncer was Warlord from WWF, World Wrestling Federation. Eric worked there, and the DJ was Gonzo.
What did Eric do? Was he just?
He was a bouncer.
Okay, he was a bouncer. Okay.
Right. And then, and it got to the point where I would come in. I mean, I was going so much that I was able to sit in VIP at the bar behind. There was like a VIP section. It would be, for me. And then the girls would know, don't go near him. Like, he's here for the food. So like the first couple times they come over, "Hey baby," and Eric would be like, no, wrong guy. And then eventually they would know, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, Anthony? Oh, hey." And they would know, like, this guy is not here for boobs and ass. He's literally here to get a bowl of fettuccine. And I would eat. I'd have 2 beers, and I would go home.
But see, that's the sneaky way to get to bag a stripper, is because they realize you're not there like every other perv on the block. So you know, they're looking at you like, oh, this is a normal guy, and that's when you
Yeah, and they would treat me like that.
yeah.
Like, you know, we would have normal conversations, and it wasn't like they knew I wasn't. I mean, they saw right away I was a cheap bastard that I wasn't giving $1 up. And I will tell you, I never gave any money out. No way. I ate my food, and you know what? Half the time the food was comped. They'd be like, no, it's on us.
Well,
I'm like, I'm not even contributing to this fucking place.
Yeah, I mean, you knew half the staff. I mean, I guess.
But then it became like I honestly started to they would think like, you know, the couple times there'd be like a new girl would come and she'd be like, who's that? Because it looked like I was somebody important.
Right.
And I would sit behind the bar VIP, like in my own little section, and I'd watch sports, I'd eat, and the I never paid for the beer. Like the bartender, she ended up being she was a worker too. She was a wrestler, Kimberly. And I would never pay. So, like, you know, the new girls would come in and be like, oh, is he? And I'd be like, no, don't go near him. He's a fucking cheap bastard. He's here for the food.
Right.
This sparked my memory what the other story was. This one is pretty wild. I don't know if the podcast can handle this one.
Is it involve a titty club?
It's even worse than that.
Okay.
So, when me and Eric used to wrestle in Tampa, there came a time where we would stay in a hotel and we would get like we had a free hotel. Besides the shitty Red Roof Inn, sometimes they would put us up into this Hilton because one of the wrestlers worked there. He was a manager, so it would be free, and it was one of the nice Hiltons. It's the Hilton where Mr. Perfect died. Anyway, there was a time period though where we didn't stay in a hotel. Eric had a friend who owned a house there, so the first time. Eric's like, hey, my buddy owns a house here. He's not here right now. He said we can stay there. And we're like, oh, cool. Like, that's good, you know. And at that point, we were going for sometimes 2-3 days in a row. So we would be there for, you know, in Tampa for sometimes a week, just wrestling and doing other projects that we had going on. So it was cool to have a house because, you know, so Eric's like, hey, this house is really big and it's got a whole bunch of rooms. Like, we can each get our own room and this and that and the other. I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. So the first night was me, Eric, and MVP was with us. He's, you know, famous wrestler guy on TV, still is. So we get to this house, and it's like a condo, like a townhome, like yours is. You know how yours is? You got to go, like, you know, you have like the garage downstairs and stuff.
Right.
It was like that, right? But this one was like a mansion. So we go in, and you got the garage, and you go up the stairs, and there was like a first level with like a kitchen and like a couple bedrooms. Then you go up another level, and there was like a second kitchen with like some more bedrooms. Then you go up a third level, and there's like another bedroom up there. So this was like a mansion but it was like a attached house. It was just really like tall. So we get there the first time we ever stay there, and you know we're stoked because we get to stay in this house, and the guy's got beds, and you know. So we go in, and Eric's like, "Hey, we each get our own room." So Eric took the room on the top floor, and I took one, I think, on the second floor, some first or second, I don't remember. And you know, Hassan got his room, and we walk in the house, and I'm like, "Hey, who are these girls?" There's like 4 girls sitting on the couch. And Eric's like, oh, yeah, they live here. I'm like, where? And he's like, oh, they have one of the floors they have rooms on them, whatever. I was like, who are they? And he's like, oh, they just work for my buddy. And I'm like, oh, okay. But they were all like in like, you know, like pajamas because it was late. So I'm like, oh, like, this is weird. Okay, they work for your buddy. Like, I put nothing together. I don't know. I'm young.
Wait, hold on. But when you say girls, they're grown women, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grown women, right?
Okay.
Right. Like, they're women.
Okay.
And they're in their pajamas, whatever. So, like, the first night we is the first time we ever stayed there. And I'm like, oh, this is so weird. Like, and we didn't, like, associate with them or anything. We just went to bed. We were tired. It was late. And, went to bed, whatever. And the next night, we woke up the next morning and we had like time before we go, and like they were all there and like, you know, drinking coffee, whatever. And it's like we just started chatting because I mean we're all staying in the same house,
right?
And we're talking, whatever. And I'm like, oh, so you guys work for, you know, whatever. I don't remember the guy's name. And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh, what do y'all do? She's like, we're escorts.
Oh my God.
I was like, where are we? You know, and I'm young, I'm stupid, I don't fucking know. I'm like, you're what? She's like, we're escorts. And I was like, oh. So I remember going back to Eric, and I think Eric was still sleeping, and I went upstairs and I woke him up, and I was like, hey, they're escorts. And he's like, yeah. I was like, you probably should have told us that beforehand. Like,
Yeah. Lead with that.
right? Like, so, and you know, again, I'm young, I'm stupid, and I'm like, well, do we have to pay for them? And he's like, what? I was like, I mean, I don't know. Like, is it like free comes with the house or something? And he's like, no. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know how it works. So over time, I mean, we stayed there a lot, you know, over time, just because we were there all the time. So, we became like cool with them. Nothing ever happened. Like, I never slept with any of them or anything. None of us did. But we became cool with them. Like, we would hang out with them at night sometimes, but they were escorts, and we stayed in this house with them. That was like the strangest thing to me. And I do remember one night we had a guy with us, David Babylon. He was a wrestler too, and we're all hanging out one night. And the next morning, I woke up and him and one of the escorts were on the couch spooning, and I was like, oh shit, and we're like, oh, you know, he got with an escort. I was like, man, I wonder. So like, I waited till after. I was like, hey, did you have to pay? And he's like, pay for what? I was like, you guys were fucking spooning on the couch. He's like, no, we just laid. he said, no, we just laid down. We were watching a movie and we fell asleep like that. I was like, you're the only motherfucker I've ever met that literally, you had the escort. You just spooned an escort and you got nothing out of it? And he's like, yeah, no, that was it. I was like,
that is
what?
That we have learned since from certain somebody who advertises this on their Facebook and Instagram that is called a cuddle session, and that he got. Listen, they charge for that too.
He got it for free though.
He got a free cuddle session.
He got on the couch. He got a free cuddle session.
Oh my God.
But that was, those times were so fucking wild. At like, I mean, it was insane. The stuff that we saw. Like, I tell people all the time, it's like, oh, you know, wrestling, they think it's dumb. I was like, no, we lived like fucking rock stars for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And like the shit that I saw and did and didn't do, we lived like fucking rock stars.
It's not like that now, though.
No, now you can't even fart without somebody trying to cancel you.
Yeah.
But, right, but they, you know, like, I mean, it was just, there was groupies and there was just all this kinds of crazy shit. But, you know, it was wild times. But, like, I think about it now and I'm like, man, we would definitely not have, like, we wouldn't have made it in today's era because we were all fucking animals. So, except for the cuddle sessions. So,
right.
Which that time was wild. That house was fucking cool. And, yeah, we stayed there for a couple months and then we went back to, like, I don't know what happened. We ended up not staying anymore. I don't know what happened.
So his friend was a pimp.
Escorts. I don't know what I don't know. I never asked after that. I was like, I'm just gonna pretend like I don't know anything.
Well, they said they worked for him.
Yeah, I don't know though. I don't know. I just know that those times were wild and you know, we've seen some shit. I know that. We've seen some shit.
Well, I'll work on you talking about some of the shit you've seen, but
yeah.
But yeah, I told you I don't know if I did on this podcast that one of the guys partnered with my friend who had the stores and opened up his own, and I worked for him for a while. That he was a DJ at a bunch of the strip clubs. Did I tell you about that? And then like
no.
I would close up the comic book store and bring the money, you know, in one of those little bank bags to the strip club. And it was like I was working. It was like a summer, you know, maybe while I was like a sophomore in college or something. So I was still underage, but I mean, because I was working for
Right.
him, I'd be able to bring it in and hang out and kind of like chill at the fucking DJ station for as long as I wanted, and drinks and naked girls, and
Right.
it was crazy. He was the one that used to get me the hookup. When we were a couple years earlier, he worked at a strip club called Treasure Island in Miami. I don't even know if it's still there now. Uh, and
I've
he
never heard of Treasure
no,
Island.
he worked at that one. He worked at the Crazy Horse, which doesn't
Okay, that I heard.
well, the Crazy Horse, the building that was is where you filmed some Ring Warrior shows at one time in Pompano.
I remember that. Well,
That-
no,
that
I
club.
remember when it was there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same building. So between those two, I didn't tell you this. I probably told you. This leads to the when I got booed at graduation.
That story you told.
Yeah, that's where I from him. I used to go to the strip clubs all the time, and any time that they had one of the like traveling porn stars doing a like a weekend, we would always pop in because we knew DJ and whatever, and I would get one of the Polaroids with them, and then I had the book, and that's when I got dared to put one of my Polaroids as my senior college yearbook picture, which ended up getting me booed at graduation. uh, so
funny.
yeah, it just reminded me of all that. So that's
Speaking of pictures,
yes.
I tried to get my daughter. She has supposed to have yearbook pictures, and they said you're supposed to send your picture in. I told her we should send one of the dog and see if they just put it in there as like a rib and see if they don't notice it. And of course, she's like, "Oh my god, that'd be so awesome."
Yeah. So is it in the works or what?
Well, then they asked for a picture of, that, and then they wanted a picture of me. I said, of me? Like of me. I said, what do they need a picture of me for? And she's like, they want a picture of like you and like they're, because I guess it's virtual school. They're trying to, I don't know, like what it's like at home or something for your, I have no fucking clue. I was like, oh, I'm sending a wrestling picture or something like totally embarrassing, like me in my underwear or something.
This is a great opportunity. I'm definitely following up on this because we need to see where.
Right, that happened this morning. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I've got all these ideas. I was like, she's like, yeah, they want one of Nick. I was like, well, if we're sending one of Nick, it's going to be really fucked up.
Yeah, you're not even going to include him in the process, are you? Oh, tell everyone about.
Okay, we'll end it with this. Okay, I know exactly where you're going with this. So my son Nick is
The dick.
Nick the Dick. We're sitting here, and he's even getting in the car, I think, and he goes, I was on Spotify and your podcast came up. And he says, why is my name in it? Because he saw his name was in the. You must have put it in. You didn't put it in the title, did you?
I think one of the episodes is titled Nick the Dick.
Yeah. And he goes, why is my name in it? And I was like, well.
I
said,
talked about you.
right. And he goes, I go, well, did you listen to it? He's like, no. But he was not very happy that we not only used him in a podcast, because we talked about him, and not only that, but we named it after him.
Right.
He was not very happy with that.
But he didn't.
So.
That's how he took much of an exception to the nickname we've given him, though.
Right. More than anything.
I think he's embraced that, and he's like, no,
Right.
no, they're right about that.
Right. Well, because it's true. He's an absolute asshole. But yeah.
All right, that's a good ending point.
And you know what? I'll tell you this too.
Uh-oh.
It's funny because
Yeah.
this is funny. So he, I'll end it on this. I'm going to put myself over for a second. We get his friend needed a ride from practice the other day, so I took him there, and then I bring him home, and we're in the car driving home, and he goes, Nick, is this your brother or your dad?
Oh.
That's what the kid said. Yeah. In front of me. He said it in the car. Me and Lex and Nick were in there, and the kid, and he literally says, is this your brother or your dad? And I was like, oh, this kid. I was like, you're already getting a free ride, kid. You don't have to kiss my ass. But yeah, so it's just so you know, I'm young.
Yeah.
I look young.
Yeah.
He said, oh, you look like you were his brother. Like you could be his brother. I was like, oh, thanks, pal. Young.
Do you want to clarify any TikTok questions that have arisen this week about your status?
No, I'm not bringing that up.
All right. Well, we'll just
I am a single man who does what the fuck he wants to do.
Right. Okay. Just
right. Is that clarified enough?
I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, let's be honest. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
You appear.
Hilarious.
You have one grown woman appear in a TikTok with you, and all of a sudden, it's a question of
getting
whether
blown up left and right. Right. Like I'm some sort of right. And this isn't the first time.
Yeah, well, it won't be the last either.
Listen, this podcast can go on forever, but so I'll have more for you next week. I'm about to piss. I got pissed my pee. I don't want to pee on the phone. I got yelled at. What?
Yeah, I said you're breaking up anyways. But
It's too late. I gotta pee. It's too late. I couldn't hold it.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.